House Democrats plan to subpoena the U.S. ambassador to the European Union after the White House barred him from testifying before Congress on Tuesday. This, of course, as lawmakers reportedly consider articles of impeachment against the president. Those include obstruction of justice and interference with federal elections.
Well, the partisan fighting ever stop? Well, in their book, Conservative, Knowing What to Keep, Senior Policy Director at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard, and former Senator and Chairman of CPI, Jim DeMint, they make the case for a return to transcendent values and proven traditions that will bring us back to freedom and prosperity. They join us now. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Thanks for having on the book.
So, Senator and Rachel, tell us a little bit about why you decided to write the book at this time.
Well, I'll kick us off. I mean, we're trying to build and lead a conservative movement in America, and as it turns out, it's not very well defined.
Sure.
The folks on the left will talk about conservatism as being hateful and bigoted, and folks on the right often just define it in terms of different policies, lower taxes or less government. It's much bigger than that.
Yes.
It really comes down to the things that we want to keep, the things that make life better. And that's what we get at the first part of the book, is we just go through those basic things that make America great. It's never going to make America perfect because they're human beings that live here. But the foundational things that we can build on are what can take us into the future.
Rachel, what's your answer to that?
Yeah, I think we really felt like there was a moment for us to step into the gap. Russell Kirk, who we harken back to a lot in this book, he's sort of a modern thought leader of conservatism, said every generation it's incumbent upon them to re-articulate conservatism for the next generation. And so this is our humble attempt to take on the values of Russell Kirk for the next generation.
So let me ask you a very simple yet very loaded question. I'll start with you, Rachel. How has Trump changed conservatism?
Well, I think he's made people think a lot about it, right? I think this gets to the heart of what conservatism is, and it distinguishes itself from the left, I think, in this regard, because very much the left gives us a lot of policy prescriptions and a lot of ideology, but conservatism is really more of a lifestyle, right? It's a philosophy of gratefulness. It's basically how we live, as opposed to just a political prescription. So I think a lot of conservatives are like, well, Trump isn't a conservative, this or that. He may not be, I don't know, but a lot of the outcomes he's accomplished have been conservative. On the deregulatory front, on the pro-life front, on the human dignity front, those are things that we look at.
What do you think,
Senator,
Senator?
of course, I mean, we see, his personal life is different than what conservatives have championed and currently champion. In terms of his trade agenda, very different from the sort of free market tradition and, of the Reagan era. He's expanded the deficit by 68%. These are all, he ran on basically universal health care. Now he's done something different in office, but he ran to the left of Hillary Clinton in a lot of ways on health care. So how does that fit into the sort of conservatism that you've always been a champion of?
Well, Trump didn't claim to be an ideological conservative.
Sure.
I mean, he is about common sense and pragmatism. How do you get from here to where he wants to go? And in a lot of ways, that matches what conservatism is how to make things work better and understanding the things that make it work better. So we don't see him as a leader of the conservative movement, but as Rachel says, a lot of his policies have conservative outcomes. I mean, there's some that haven't. Certainly the spending element is something we need to deal with. The trade element, though, I think is you can define it either way. He is for free trade, but not for Americans being taken to the cleaners by other countries. So he's brought a new perspective to politics, but conservatism is much older than Trump or any of us, and that's what we want to make the point of. All of us are conservatives. We all want to keep the things that matter to us. Now, they may be different things, but that's the point we're trying to make in the book, is we all want to keep the things that we value.
It's interesting. There's a famous moment on the campaign trail. Trump said, "I'm not running for the Conservative Party. I'm running for the Republican Party." I thought that's an interesting dichotomy of what you're talking about here. But, Senator, you were a big leader in the Tea Party movement, and I'm worried. I wonder, do you think that the seeds of what Trump ran on existed within that movement? What do you think that 2010 backlash was actually all about? At the time, there were a lot of people who wanted to say it was about spending, it was a backlash to this, it was a backlash to Obama trying to change a fundamental way of American life. What do you, in reflection now, it's been almost 9 years, What do you think that it actually was about?
Well, it started before the Tea Party. You saw rumblings of it in the '94 Republican Revolution. People have been pushing back against the government. And I think what happened, and it wasn't really Obama, it was Bush's bailouts and Obama's Obamacare, and people just, normal people from all over the country. There were liberals, conservatives. I went to a lot of these meetings, and they just saw it. The government is getting out of control. They're forgetting the Constitution. Just too much spending. What about the debt, the bailouts, the special favors? It just culminated in this Tea Party wave, which is still rumbling out there. But what we saw is a lot of Americans get active and send new people to Washington, and hardly anything changed.
Yeah, nothing changed.
And so I think what Trump added to that was a spirit of fighting for something.
Right.
And that's what I see people, they'll disagree with half of what I believe, but if they think I'm going to fight for it, that means almost as much as the policy.
I think that's really true. I mean, Rachel, I was actually running for Congress in 2010 as a Democrat. Beautiful timing. And I went to a lot of these meetings too, because my rule was if somebody in the district, if a group in the district invited me to go, I was going to go. Didn't care how much we disagreed. And some of it was great. Some of it was frankly ugly. There was a lot of energy, but you do look now at the Trump movement and the Tea Party movement and the overlap there, and what was claimed at the time that this was all about debt and deficits. It's hard to see how that's true when this president has continued to up the deficit, increase the debt, and now there seems to be no qualms about it, no backlash to it. I'm not saying that the two of you haven't criticized it, but in terms of a popular movement against increasing the deficit, there's nothing out there.
Well, I think more broadly, there was a sense of disenfranchisement across the country. I think it was channeled through this idea of a debt and deficit, right? And that was the proxy, I think, for that.
I think that's well said, yeah.
But I do think, and Trump's election speaks to this still, because I think it transcends both parties, and I think that's almost what sent Trump to Washington, was this blue-collar populism at the Democrat level joining sort of this Republican establishment, because neither party felt like they were being listened to. And so this is incumbent upon both parties to fix that, and if they don't, we're going to continue to see, President Trump and Trump-style politicians who people feel speak directly to their concerns. Like, he's a disruptor. That's what people like about him. On the left or the right, he'll come up and say, "This hasn't been working. I'm going to do it my way." I'm listening to the people back home. I speak directly to them on Twitter. I engage with them at that level. That's a hugely powerful force in our politics, and it's been untapped by the establishment in both Democrat and Republican circles.
Do you think that Trump is the future of the Republican Party?
No, none of us are. It's bigger than any one person. We write a lot about it in the book Conservative, just the alienation that people feel. They're not being represented by either party. There's no real place to go right now. But people are looking more inside at what's going on. But they're looking at candidates who are non-traditional, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. They want somebody to kick down the doors in Washington, right or wrong, to do something different than, because everyone seems to sense we're going in an unsustainable direction. But there are answers to this. It's not going to be built by politicians, but we do need political leaders who fall in line with a lot of the things that have worked in America in the past.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, one political tool exploited by both Republicans and Democrats to maintain power is gerrymandering.
The Intercept's David Daly has taken a state-by-state look at that issue and describes how it came into play during a U.S. Census case heard by the Supreme Court. You will get all of that when Rising returns.